Hello, today we will enhance the scrolling experience that our users have on the banner feed section on our furniture app. We will use modifiers introduced in iOS 17 using Xcode Beta 15 to add new modifiers that change how we transition views in the scroll view, how we set the offset relative to the content margins, and how the views lay out themselves relative to the size of their container. So right now we have the scroll view, we have this implementation in iPad. We are sizing the cell based on geometry proxy. Here we're passing a fixed width in CGFloat, so the cell sizes itself. Same goes for the iPhone, just the measurements are different. And we have a padding here that's actually not consistent. So yeah, it's not the best. We're gonna focus this video on just the top section, this horizontal scroll. We're gonna make it better with all of the new modifiers that were added to SwiftUI. So we are already supporting iOS 17 in this. We're using Xcode Beta, the first version, mind you, and we're gonna work on this banner feed section. This is what feeds this view. So for starters, the scrolling. We don't want it to stop here. We want actually the scroll to be consistent with each of these views. Whenever I scroll, I want it to stop on one of the views. So let's start there. And now we can do it with the scroll of target behavior. So we'll add it here at the end of the scroll view. Everyone, this scroll target behavior to be view aligned. That means, yeah, so it aligns the scroll targets to the view-based geometry. Now, we need to tell it to what views. So what we're actually going to do is in this, for each of the stack, this is where we're gonna have the scroll target layout. Target layout. So basically we're saying, oh, you need to scroll with a behavior that's aligned to the views. Which views? Well, the ones that we're adding this scroll target layout modifier. And here, actually in the documentation, you can see this modifier works together with view aligned scroll target behavior. And let's run with this small change. For now, let's focus on iPhone. By the way, we'll then do any, if at all, modifications so it works with iPhone. So here, look, I'm scrolling, let's leave it here, it aligns with the view. So it's aligning right here. Here there are no more, so it cannot align right to the edge. Now, one thing that I don't like, and you might see it here, is that yes, we are scrolling too, but it's right next to the edge of the screen. We do not want that. But we also do not want to add a simple padding to the scroll view, since for those of you that are a little bit experienced, adding a padding to the scroll view will start clipping the views here. What we want to do is just the content, like we do with UI scroll view. We want to offset the content, so it starts here and then we can scroll past. Now we also have a new modifier for this. We are also going to apply to the scroll view itself. We don't need to apply it to each of these views. So we're going to remove this padding. We don't need the subviews to worry about it. The scroll view will take care of it, and that's with content margins. Now we'll add it for horizontal. Oops, sorry, that's not the one. It's this one with the edges. So we'll add it for the horizontal. It will be, let's see, a length of 20. Let's try 20 points, and it's for. Let's allow the autocomplete to show that again. So it's the content margin placement. So what's going to be the content margin placement? The scroll content. So again, this is scroll content. We can also do it for the scroll indicators. Let's run again and see how this changes how our subviews are placed inside of the scroll view. Aha! Here we have the padding that we have. Everything is aligned, and we can scroll here. When we align the view, it realigns, and it takes into consideration the margins that we set. So now this looks better. Now, right now we have this cell width again with a fixed height. So if we see our banner fit section has a cell width, and it initializes the banner cell with that width, with the frame. Let's remove it. Let's remove this and see where it comes from. So if we look for it, we have a fit section which has a cell width, and this comes from a geometry proxy. Now, geometry proxy works, but it's time to level up. We have more powerful things here. Now we have the regular width. For now, let's leave the frame of the fit section as it is with the 400. It's this that we want to avoid using geometry proxy. And let's remove it. We just need the banner fit section, and instead of using that width for the banner cell, what we're gonna do is, and I'm so happy to be saying this, finally we have relative width constraints. So we can say, oh, we want this to be as big as the container that we have relative to the horizontal axis. So now our banner cell, we have the same width as its container. Oh, I have, oh yes, here in the preview, there was an extra. And here we have it, our container. Notice that it's not the entire width. Why? Because of the content margin that we just specified here in the horizontal. That looks much better, and we didn't have to use geometry proxy for it. Another thing that we can use is scroll transition. We want this to animate how when our views go out of focus and they're not in the center, so they're going out of bounds, we want them to scale down. So we could also, again, add it with effect. I already have a video on that using geometry proxy. Here we can use again a new modifier, which is scroll transition. So on scroll transition, and I actually want to use one that specifies the axis. Why? Because there's different transitions that will happen here. We have different scroll views. We have the vertical one, and we have horizontal scrolling. We want the horizontal scrolling to be the one that has the transition effect. So notice that here we have the axis. Let's wait for the transition at the axis. And we want this to be horizontal. And now for the transition, it's a closure, so let's have it as a trailing closure. It receives two things. One is the content, and the other one is the phase of the scrolling. Now the content is what we will be applying, and we will to what we will be applying the transition, and we'll apply a scale effect. So we want the content to be, well, the same size, standard, when it is on the center of the screen. This phase is called the identity. So when it is being presented, it will be the identity. If this happens, then we want the normal scale. CG size. And we want it to be with the width of 1.0 and height of 1.0. If not, then we want it to be 0, since we're gonna shrink it down. And that's pretty much it. Let's see how that looks. Notice we no longer see the view here on the right, and that's because let's start scrolling. As we scroll out of focus, the view starts to shrink down, and as it comes in, it starts to scale up. Now we have this cool effect without us having to implement geometry effect and having to check on where the offset of the subview is inside of the scroll view, which is what I did previously. Much better. Now let's check on iPad how this looks and see if we have to modify anything. Yeah, it doesn't look quite well. Everything is aligned. We do have our margins, everything is being followed, but we have a lot more space on iPad. We don't need our view to actually be the entire width of the container. The only reason why this is not stretching is because the image has an aspect ratio and it's respecting it. So let's fix this. We are already using a horizontal size class here on the feed view. Let's use it in our banner feed section. And change this. The container relative frame doesn't have to be the entire width. We can also do a fraction. How? With count. So this one basically says, oh, we want a relative size to our container where we can fit an X amount of this view. So if where do we have it? The horizontal size class, if it's regular, we'll fit, let's say, 3 subviews. If not, then we'll fit 1, which is what we have right now. The spacing, which would be the spacing of each of the views, and let's add a spacing of 8. Oh, and I am missing this. Let's run it again on the iPad. And now that looks much better. We have 3 views. Our scrolling still works here. And we have a cool effect in our scroll view. We can fit 3 views. Here you can see the spacing on each of the views. And there we have it. A much more improved scrolling experience, adding a few modifiers. As you can see, with a few modifiers, we could improve the scrolling experience for our users in a matter of minutes. One of the changes that I'm most excited about is the container relative frame. Finally, we can express in terms of fractions what we used to do with NS layout constraints, so our views are laid properly inside of their containers without having to always resort to GeometryReader and Geometry Proxy. Hope you liked the video. Bye.